Hello, Matt again from the Kinderhook Memorial Library, Teen Librarian. Today I'm here to talk about a topic that I really enjoy, books about and featuring video games. So if you're a gamer and a reader like I am, you know that there are a lot of video game novels written. So you can find books about Halo, about Minecraft, Mass Effect, Dragon Age, those types of things. I wanted to focus more on books that were about non-existing franchises, so not adaptations of anything specifically. And I also really wanted to talk about this because one of the most popular video game novels out there, which is called Ready Player One by Ernest Cline, is not actually one of my favorite books. I don't appreciate it as much as some people do. Not that it's a bad book. I definitely recommend that if you like video games, like nostalgia, like that sort of sci-fi futuristic thing, that you check it out. It's just not really a book that I enjoy personally. So I have some others here that I want to talk about today. The first of which is sort of another, a very classic story. Many of you have probably read it. It is called Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. It was written in, I think, 1985 or it was written a while ago, so it's really classic and evolved sort of very much ahead of its time. It's a lot of fun, very dark. It tells the story of a young man named Ender Wiggins who is born to a futuristic society where Earth is in constant combat with these aliens that they nickname buggers, I think. And so Ender is recruited from a very young age by this military organization that uses video games to train their young combatants to fight this alien menace. Ender very quickly becomes sort of a prodigy. He's one of the best strategists and one of the best fighters. And what he doesn't realize is that they are slowly forming him and melding him to become this sort of, sort of killing machine. It's really interesting, like I said, very dark, but an intriguing story. It's got a couple of sequels, which I haven't read. I don't really think they're necessary. The story stands alone. Again, that's Ender's Game. Definitely recommended by yours truly. The next book I wanted to talk about is called Warcross by Marie Lu. It takes place in the future, about a young woman named Emika Chen who is a hacker who is very down on her luck. So what she decides to do is hack into this very popular, very well-watched virtual reality game that sort of has a very huge following. And then something goes wrong and she glitches, and instead of secretly going in and stealing some very valuable items, she is broadcast to the millions, perhaps billions of viewers, and her cover is completely blown. Instead of facing consequences for that, she's actually recruited to be on one of the teams competing in the Warcross tournament. She's there sort of as a spy, and a hacker who sort of knows the ins and outs of the game. And she gets really involved with the secrecy. So even though she's this key player in the game, and even though she has this very huge task to try to uncover unsavory characters within the game, she's also sort of a pawn. So she doesn't really know what her role is. If she's being used, is she being manipulated? And she has to sort of uncover all of that for herself. And it's a really great book. There is one sequel that I haven't had a chance to read, but I would very much like to. If anybody has read it, let me know if it holds up to the original. Again, that's Warcross by Marie Lu, who is a great author, by the way. She writes a ton of other books. If you like this, check out other video game books, but also other books by Marie Lu, like The Young Elites, which is fantastic. The other book I wanted to talk about is absolutely fantastic. Probably one of my favorites to be released in the last couple of years. I think it came out almost exactly a year ago, actually. It's called Slay by Brittany Morris. It takes place in a very similar time to today, but one where a virtual reality game called Slay is extremely prominent and extremely popular. So We read about the main character, Kiera Johnson, who is not just she's a private school student. She has a very good life. She's a straight A student, but she's also the creator of this very popular virtual reality online game and nobody really knows that it's her. So it's this big secret that she keeps because she doesn't want that interfering with her life. It's also a really interesting book because it deals with a lot of racial issues. The game Slay is about Black culture and Black society, and the creator, Kiera, puts so much of her experiences and her life into the game for this really fun, fun expression of her culture, which it turns out is not as appreciated by everybody in the universe. People accuse her of being racist because they say that white people aren't allowed, which isn't necessarily the case, but it makes her sort of reevaluate her role as the creator, her role in the game, and amongst her friends. It's a really interesting look at both gamer culture and the sort of the griefing that goes on, the online attacks that some players face, and also Black culture, which are two areas that don't often come together, especially in literature. And so this is really, I think, sort of a groundbreaking book, and a really good one at that. Again, I highly recommend it. One of my favorites, Slay by Brittany Morris. The last one I want to discuss is actually a nonfiction book because we should all look into the real world every so often. It's called Game On. It's video game history. What does it say? From Pong and Pac-Man to Mario, Minecraft, and more. It's sort of an all-encompassing history of video games, starting at 1978's Space Invaders. And it's a lot of text, but they go through to some of the more popular common games. We have computer games in the 90s, Pokemon, classic. And it sort of brings you to, the real world. Or the modern world, I should say. It came out, looks like the newest entry they have is Overwatch from 2016. So if you are interested in the history of video games, and I think you should be if you are a gamer, it's always, it's fun to look back and see how far we've come, what those classics were like compared to modern games. Again, Game On, modern video game history. That's all I have for you today. If you've read any other books featuring video games, if you want to yell at me for not liking Ready Player One, that's totally fine too. Let me know in the chat, and I'll see you again next week with another book talk.